we've talked about mixed bus before, but somebody asked a question which I actually liked, which is, there's a way to answer it that's very straightforward, but then I think it'd be cool for you and I to kind of wax poetic about it, which is talking about the mix bus and its purpose. Let's see, either Eric or Noah, something about using mix bus processing in your workflow. Is it important for making great mixes? And I think the quick answer is no, of course not, because you can make great mixes without it. But I believe it is the case that pretty much everybody has a mix bus that affects their sound in such a way that it is an essential part of almost, I would say, everybody. I don't know anybody who doesn't have like a setup. And obviously it's variable, you make some adjustments, but you Baines, Tizio, Serban, everybody's got some configuration of mix bus stuff that they use, which adds some equalization, some harmonic, some compression limiting, something to it. So I think the answer is yes. I think everybody has a mix bus thing that they do. And you and I have talked about yours before, which changes over time. I never really thought about that as a concept, but I think everybody's kind of got their mix bus thing. Is that the case? Has it always been that way?
And it's always,
what do you think about it?
It's always been a taste thing too, right? Like I basically give myself a handicap headed towards a sonic direction that my ears like to hear on all genres of music. Nothing's too heavy-handed. Nothing's going to make or break the mix. So I don't. I wouldn't say that it's something I rely on. I could probably mix without it. It gets me to a desired result a little quicker, and that's something that just comes with practice and recognition of what tools get you somewhere that you want to be at. So I think everybody hears about the mix bus some way, whether it's from a friend, a mentor, a blog, a YouTube clip, Instagram, now with like engineers being out there and Pensado's place, like there's a mix with the masters. There's always a version of what's being described to us as like the new thing that you need on your mix bus. We can just spell that real quick. Whatever the new thing is that you need, you don't actually need. You don't need it, exactly. but why do we have it? We've talked about this on many occasions. I also went through it on my first live Twitch. That's right. But just for the record, I actually went through why I'd have everything on it. So I'm not going to necessarily say it over again, but everything is very minimal and a way to get things to be louder and competitive and also to my taste. My taste tends to be a little bit warmer in the high mids, right? So in order to do that, I have some broad stroke control in that zone, not any like big giant reductions that scoop things out. I don't do a lot of giant scooping on buses or on the mix bus. I do them individually. I consider myself a mix engineer, so I hear everything separately as well as together, right? So when I want to make a big move, I do it on the thing itself. I don't want to affect it overall. So I would say that, yes, it should be something that you consider, that you work towards finding your version of it. Don't copy whatever you see. I had a really amazing moment the other day that someone shouted out the Just for the Record live Twitch thing that I was doing with a setting of the Faraday limiter that I use all the time and had nothing to do with my setting. It was just shout out like mixed by Jon Castelli for showing me this tool. And it looked nothing like what I would have done. I was like, yes. So people are finding the tool and using it their own way. If I saw it was exactly my setting, I'd be like, why? Like that's not going to make you hear things the way that you hear them. You're going to think you're doing something that I did and you're supposed to do. I got so excited when I saw the setting look completely different than mine. And I hope to see that more. I hope that people are taking what you and I are talking about, what I'm demonstrating monthly now, and copy it to a degree, but use it the way you hear. And it's the same thing with a mix bus. Every big mixer had a different compressor on their mix bus post the SSL days, right? Where everyone had the G comp on, Tony Maserati has his thing that he was doing. He might have 4 or 5 that he's going to try on a different mix. When I was working with him, he had 3 or 4 different mix bus compressors he would try on different genres. This Eric one had a more slower, a lot of people do that. So, it's not a one size fits all. I think most of what I use is one size fits all. It's very minimal. I'm not looking for like overall tonal changes on this. That's like heavy handed again. Like if you put an API mix bus compressor, it's very heavy handed. It's a thing. It sounds aggressive. It's punchy. That might not work for a soft, slow R&B record, right? It just might not do the thing. So you're putting yourself in a box where you might lose the gig because you're just way too, it's not right for everything. So the things that I use on my mix bus tend to be right for almost everything to some degree. I don't know. I think it's something to shape. And
yeah. Well, I like what you said, where you said it gets it competitively loud and gets it to your taste. And that's a really two important concepts, because the mix bus is very often what kind of saturation you use, a little clipper, are you going to use compression, or you use a limiter, that sort of thing. Obviously, mastering engineer is going to do their version of that, depending on what your relationship is, how much you trust them, what their expectations are, what your communication is with them. You've obviously talked about your relationship with Dale, who's now been mastering some of my stuff. And I imagine he's doing different things to my mixes than he is to yours. The relationship is different.
I'm doing different things. Let me just jump in and say that normally, for example, I just use a clipper to get things leveled to where I think that they should be delivered. But on this record that I did yesterday, I used 2 limiters and a clipper, which is very rare for me. But I'll still do it. I'll still do the thing that if that's what it needs to be competitively loud and a bit more crunchy than I'm used to doing. Like, that's what the record needs. So that's what I did. I don't do that often, but I'm not afraid to do it. I'm not ashamed by it. I'm not like, the record needed what the record needed to be as loud as it wanted to be. And for someone that doesn't like things super loud all the time, I liked how loud it got, and I got a good feedback from it in my, my visceral response to it was like, oh, that feels right. And then the client was happy. It's like, well, that's something that is part of the process of learning what these tools do on the mix bus, right? So I knew how to achieve what I was going for, and it took a little bit more effort than I have on the past few mixes that I've been doing this week or last week.
I had a thought about, it's something that I've started doing more. I can always do more of it. And I think everybody, no matter what your level is, should do. And I think we don't all do it because we're so anxious about like getting to the finish line, getting things done. We're much more excited about actually making the things than taking the time to learn oftentimes. But I think anytime you get a new tool, especially something that you watch Jon Castelli's stream and he's using the spectral shaper in this way and it's subtly this much. If you want to try that, sure, start by setting it up as somebody else is doing it, and then really spend the time to listen, think about why it's doing it, how it might affect your mixes positively or negatively, and then play with it and make it more extreme and really spend the time to listen and play with it. I love what you said about the Faraday limiter, which is something that I love. And I think you and I can't remember if it was offline or online, but you and I talked about it at one point, and I was using it differently than you were using it. And it's a great tool. Taking these, when you see people who you respect as a mixer, as a record maker, whatever, play with the things that they're doing, but then explore all of the directions of it and all of the limits of it, because that's how you're going to learn the most. Because, we talk about often how we probably wouldn't recommend for most people to go to recording engineer school or songwriting school or production school. But the thing that school is good for is it'll slow you down and force you to do repetitions in a way that if you're just doing it for funsies, which is what you should be doing for the most part, it's hard to slow down and go, oh my God, I got this new compressor. It sounds so good. I'm going to use the Jon Castelli setting. And then you don't actually explore it and learn why it's great and adjust it, because whatever Jon is doing on the mix bus or whatever I'm doing on my vocal compression or whatever it is an accumulation of other things that cause that to work for us. And by the way, we probably change it 2 months later anyway, but you should take the things that you hear, that you see on YouTube videos or whatever, and go, okay, this is how they're using it. This is, I think, why they're using it. Now let me see all the things it can do, because that will cause you to really learn it deeply and then apply it in a way that's more appropriate for you.
Thanks for watching. Just a reminder, all of this content is free. There's no secret knowledge here. There's no Patreon. We don't read ads. We don't have sponsors. We're just trying to build a knowledge base. All that we ask in return is that you share it with somebody. Thanks so much.